At New Year's dinner, Mom made an announcement. We're not babysitting your kids anymore. I smiled. Then no more repairs either. I stood up and walked out. By morning, my phone had 48 missed calls. One Facebook comment turned the whole family against her. My name is Cassandra Hayes. Please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss a moment like this. Your like and share can carry this story to someone who needs hope, healing, or strength today. Red Heart. I'm 36 years old, a single mother of 2, and I work as a radiology technician at County General. On Valentine's Day evening, during what was supposed to be a quiet family dinner at my mother's newly renovated condo, she decided to announce, loud enough for my brother's family and my uncle to hear, that she would no longer be co-signing anything for me. Ever again. The chatter died instantly. My wine glass stopped halfway to my lips. My daughters, Emma and Iris, looked up from their phones, confusion written across their faces. This wasn't a joke. My mother, Diane, stood there with her arms crossed, chin lifted like she was delivering a corporate memo. No more co-signing loans. No more putting my credit on the line. No more bailing you out when things get tight. The heat started at my collarbone and crawled up to my ears, but I kept my voice steady. Are you serious right now, Mom? She didn't flinch. Then no more errands at 2 in the morning. No more driving you to specialists 3 counties over. No more dealing with your insurance appeals or sorting through your medication refills. You can't cut me loose and still expect me to be your personal assistant and medical advocate. Someone coughed. My brother stared at his plate. No one defended me. So I stood up, told my girls to grab their coats, and we walked out before dessert was even served. At the time, I thought I was simply drawing a line in the sand. I had no idea that by the next afternoon, my phone would be flooded with 52 missed calls, and that one comment I'd leave on her social media post would unravel the entire family dynamic. The door clicked shut behind us just as someone inside turned up the romantic comedy playing on the TV. I could hear muffled laughter through the walls, but out in the parking lot it was just cold February wind and the sound of Emma trying to zip her jacket with shaking hands. My mother didn't follow us out. Neither did Gerald, her new husband. For a moment I stood beside my sedan, keys dangling from my fingers, wondering if I was really doing this, walking away from the only family safety net I had as a single mom working rotating shifts at the hospital. Then I remembered the way my daughter's faces had crumpled when she said, bailing you out, like we were some kind of charity case. The doubt evaporated. I buckled the girls in, slid into the driver's seat, and started the engine. As my headlights swept across her pristine landscaping and the decorative fountain I'd helped her research and install, I couldn't stop thinking about how we'd gotten here. For 8 months, I'd been making the 35-minute drive from the city after 10-hour shifts to take her to cardiology appointments, to navigate her prescription coverage denials, to sit on hold with insurance companies because these automated systems confuse me. Sweetheart, I'd spent my rare weekends off helping her submit documents to her new HOA, painting her spare bedroom, and installing smart home devices so she wouldn't get fined for outdated fixtures. The arrangement had seemed fair. I helped keep her retirement smooth and stress-free. In return, she'd co-sign my car loan after the divorce tanked my credit, and she'd agreed to be my emergency contact for apartment applications and future financial needs. It wasn't charity. It was supposed to be mutual support. But my mother had turned it into a transaction the second she stood up and publicly revoked her end of the deal in front of everyone. As I merged onto the highway, I caught Emma's reflection in the rearview mirror. She was blinking rapidly, fighting tears. "Does Grandma hate us?" she whispered. I shook my head, swallowing hard. "No, baby, Grandma doesn't hate you. She's angry at me, and she doesn't know how to express it without hurting the people around her." Iris kicked at the seat in front of her. Did we mess up? I exhaled slowly. You did nothing wrong. Sometimes adults say hurtful things because they're exhausted or resentful or stuck in old patterns. That doesn't make it okay. My job is to make sure you understand that you're never a burden to me. Not ever. By the time we reached our apartment complex downtown, the streets were nearly empty. A few stray heart-shaped balloons drifted past closed storefronts. I reheated leftover stir-fry, poured sparkling cider into mismatched glasses, and we watched a nature documentary on my laptop. Emma rested her head against my shoulder. Iris curled up on my other side. As we clinked our glasses together and whispered, "Happy Valentine's Day," to each other, it struck me that maybe starting this chapter with just the three of us wasn't a failure. It was the first clean break from a dynamic that had been suffocating me for years. I just didn't realize yet what kind of price my mother was about to pay for forcing that break. The first thing I noticed on February 15th was my phone vibrating so hard it nearly fell off my nightstand. My head felt heavy from too little sleep, and for a split second, I thought the hospital was calling me in for an emergency. I grabbed the phone, squinted at the screen, and my stomach dropped. 52 missed calls. Most from Mom. Several from Gerald. A handful from the landline. 3 from a number I recognized as my cousin Bethany. For one terrible moment, my medical training kicked into overdrive. Stroke. Heart failure. A fall. Something catastrophic must have happened after we left. I sat up, already mentally calculating which emergency room I should direct her to. I called her back. She answered on the first ring, voice tight, not weak or panicked, just irritated. "You need to come over here, Cassandra. We need to have a conversation." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "Are you okay? Are you in pain? Did something happen with your heart?" She sighed like I was being melodramatic. "I'm fine physically. Just get in your car and come over. This can't wait." The way she said it, clipped and commanding, sounded more like a supervisor issuing orders than a mother trying to reconcile after a fight. I glanced at the girls still asleep in the pull-out bed, hair tangled, blankets twisted around them. Part of me wanted to ignore her, to let her sit with the consequences of what she'd done. But another part needed to confirm there wasn't some brewing crisis that would explode if I left it unattended. So I threw on jeans and a sweatshirt, scribbled a note for Emma in case she woke up and panicked, and drove back toward the suburbs with a knot of dread in my chest that had nothing to do with caffeine withdrawal. When I pulled up to her condo, everything looked exactly as it had the night before. No ambulance. No concerned neighbors lingering outside. Just a quiet street and a glossy front door with a seasonal wreath. Inside, my mother sat at the dining table, makeup applied, hair styled, not a medical alert bracelet in sight. Gerald sat beside her, nursing a coffee mug like it was armor. Across from them sat Cousin Bethany, hands folded, lips pressed into a thin line. The whole setup felt less like a family emergency and more like a performance review. I stopped just inside the entryway. "So nobody's dying?" Mom rolled her eyes. "Must you be so theatrical? We called because what you did last night was completely inappropriate and immature. You embarrassed us in front of everyone and stormed out over one simple statement. One simple statement." I repeated, "Telling your granddaughters they're essentially a financial liability isn't simple, Mom." Gerald cleared his throat. "We just think you overreacted. Your mother has done a tremendous amount for you. You wouldn't have survived the divorce without her support." Mom straightened in her chair, seizing the opening. "Exactly. After everything your ex-husband put you through, who was there co-signing loans, helping you find that job, being your reference for everything, and you repay me by threatening to abandon me with my medical appointments and insurance nightmares because I'm finally setting a healthy boundary. My jaw tightened. You didn't set a boundary. You detonated a bomb. You could have pulled me aside literally any other time and said you needed to step back from co-signing things. Instead, you announced it in front of my kids and half the family like you were making a toast. Bethany shifted uncomfortably. "Aunt Diane," she said quietly, "you have to admit the delivery was harsh. It sounded a lot like the way you used to talk to Cassandra when she was younger. Remember?" Mom's eyes flashed. "Don't start, Bethany. This is between me and my daughter." She turned back to me. "The point is, you still have obligations as my child. I'm getting older. I can't just drive myself to specialists in other counties. I can't navigate these impossible insurance portals by myself. You don't get to withdraw all that support just because your feelings got hurt. Let me understand this correctly," I said slowly. "You want to stop co-signing anything for me, but you still expect me to drive 35 minutes each way whenever you need something, to handle all your medical bureaucracy, to deal with your HOA complaints, and to manage your online accounts. Because that's not a boundary. That's a one-sided deal. That's how family functions." Mom snapped. "Parents raise children, then children care for parents. You owe me." The word "owe" struck something raw inside me. All those nights I'd driven on fumes. All the canceled plans. All the times I'd swallowed her criticisms just to maintain peace. They lined up in my mind like a stack of invoices. I looked at Bethany. She held my gaze, then gave the smallest nod, like she was saying, "I see what's happening here." I turned back to my mother. "No, I don't owe you errands. I don't owe you free labor. I don't owe you my daughter's emotional well-being in exchange for your convenience. You made it crystal clear last night that you don't want to be part of my support system anymore. So I'm taking you at your word." Mom's face went blotchy. "So what, you're just going to abandon your mother now that she's aging?" "I'm not abandoning you," I said evenly. "I'm telling you that starting today, I'm not your personal assistant or your handyman. If you need to get to a doctor, you can call a neighbor, a rideshare service, a medical transport, whatever. If you want someone to handle your HOA issues, you can pay a property manager. I'm done being the only one sacrificing." The room went so quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. Gerald opened his mouth like he wanted to argue, then closed it again. Bethany stared down at her hands. Mom looked at me like I was a stranger. "You can't be serious." "Watch me," I said, and for the second time in 24 hours, I walked out of her home. This time with no children to shield me, and no guilt weighing on my shoulders. Just a strange, cold certainty that I'd finally severed the cord she'd been using to pull me back into place. I didn't know yet how much that severance was going to cost her. The first few days after that second walkout were strangely peaceful. I returned to my rotating shifts at the hospital, back to X-ray machines and patient charts, and families nervously waiting for radiology results. And for the first time in months, I wasn't mentally calculating how many minutes it would take to detour through my mom's neighborhood to pick up her prescriptions or drop off grocery orders. Then the messages began. At first, they were brief and almost cordial. "Cassandra, I apologize if I upset you. Can we please talk?" Then, "I miss the girls so much. Let me spend time with my granddaughters." I stared at my phone between patients, my thumbs hovering over the keyboard. She wasn't apologizing for her actions. She was apologizing for my response to them. So I replied once, keeping it short. "I'm not keeping them from you, but we're taking space until I trust you can treat them with kindness. That's final." The next morning brought another text. "Fine, I'll co-sign occasionally, but you still need to handle my medical appointments. I can't manage all this alone." There it was again. The negotiation, the assumption that my time and energy were resources she could bargain for like a discount at checkout. I didn't respond. Over the following week, the messages started swinging wildly. One day it was guilt. After everything I've sacrificed for you, this is how you repay me. The next day it was martyrdom. Don't worry about your aging mother. I'll figure it out somehow, even if it kills me. Then came the proxy calls from relatives who clearly only had half the story. Your mom called me in tears. Cassandra, she says you told her to handle her health crises alone. You know about that cardiac episode she had last spring, right? I'd listen calmly, then say, Mom is a capable adult who decided my financial needs were too burdensome for her. I'm respecting her decision. She can use the same apps and services I use to get where she needs to go. Some understood. Others didn't. In the middle of all this, I had my own life to reconstruct. I connected with a woman in my building, another single parent who worked at the public library. We arranged a trade. She'd watch Emma and Iris on nights I had late shifts, and on my days off, I'd take her daughter so she could pick up weekend hours. I spoke with my supervisor and restructured some of my most brutal back-to-back overnight rotations into slightly more sustainable patterns. I stopped reflexively checking my phone during breaks to see what crisis my mother needed solved. It felt odd, like when you remove a splinter and suddenly realize how much constant pressure you'd been living with. 10 days later, Cousin Bethany texted, "Can I stop by this weekend? There's something I want to discuss away from your mom." She arrived at my apartment on a Saturday afternoon carrying a bakery box full of croissants and wearing that expression she gets when she's about to say something honest that not everyone will appreciate. The girls were in their room building a blanket fort, so we sat at my cramped kitchen table. For a while, she asked about work, about the girls, about whether I was sleeping enough. Then she sighed and leaned back in her chair. "Your mom is in free fall," she said. "That renovation company she hired for the kitchen and bathroom remodel, they're already sending revised invoices." She shrugged. "Hidden costs, premium material upgrades, additional labor charges. The final number is nowhere close to what she bragged about at Christmas." I picked at a croissant. She could have avoided all that if she'd just waited and asked me to review the contracts. I would have spotted the red flags. Bethany nodded. She could have, but then she would have had to admit she needs you. And lately, I think that terrifies her more than the debt does. I frowned. What does that even mean? She studied me carefully. You know how for years your mom told everyone how difficult her life was? Raising you kids alone after the divorce, keeping food on the table, holding everything together. Some of it was true, but it also became her entire identity, the martyred mother, the one who suffered while everyone else took from her. I thought about all the stories Mom loved recounting at family gatherings, the ones that always ended with her shaking her head and laughing bitterly about how ungrateful we'd been as children. Bethany continued, "Then here you come. Single mom, yes, but you earn your degree. You land this demanding hospital job. You lease your own apartment. You handle everything yourself. You show up consistently when something needs fixing. You raise your kids without dumping them on her full time. Gradually, people stop talking about how much she sacrifices and start talking about how resilient you are. She loses the narrative. She loses the spotlight." I stared at her. "Are you suggesting she stopped co-signing because of attention?" Bethany hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "I think your mom feels replaced. She's no longer the hero of the story. She can't say, 'I'm the only thing standing between Cassandra and complete disaster.' Co-signing things, being your emergency financial backup, that was the last piece she could hold over you. So when she felt overwhelmed and bitter, she ripped it away in the most public, dramatic way possible, hoping you'd come crawling back on her terms." The words hit something I hadn't wanted to acknowledge. I remembered every backhanded comment about my schedule, every time she told someone I worked too obsessively, every subtle comparison between my girls and well-adjusted little Tyler down the street. And beneath all of it, this quiet tension whenever someone complimented me instead of her. I felt exhausted down to my bones. So what am I supposed to do? I asked, go back there and pretend it didn't happen, just so she doesn't feel threatened. Bethany shook her head firmly. No, I'm telling you this, so you stop thinking you're losing your mind. You're not overreacting. You're finally stepping out of a role she wrote for you decades ago. And she's having a meltdown because the script changed. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Let her sit with the consequences. She's the one who wanted to be independent. Remember, I glanced toward the girls' room, where laughter floated through the doorway. For the first time, I let myself imagine a future where my small family didn't revolve around extinguishing my mother's emotional fires. And somewhere between the croissants and the quiet, I decided I was finished rushing in every time she struck the match. A few days after Bethany's visit, life settled into an unfamiliar but manageable rhythm where my phone didn't vibrate constantly with emergencies from my mother. I almost started believing she'd finally accepted this new version of our relationship. Then a screenshot appeared in our extended family group chat, one of those images where you have to zoom in to read the text. It was a photo Mom had posted to her neighborhood community page, standing in front of a partially completed bathroom renovation, all exposed drywall and unfinished tile work, smiling like she was hosting a home improvement show. New year, new projects, doing this completely on our own now. The caption read, "No more waiting around for other people to show up when it's convenient for them." Beneath it, several of her neighbors had commented with those generic, encouraging emojis, calling her inspiring, independent, a true survivor. I stared at it during my lunch break, remembering the weekends I'd spent at her place researching contractors, comparing quotes, and helping her understand the difference between load-bearing walls and cosmetic changes, so she wouldn't get scammed. She hadn't hired help because she had nobody. She'd hired help because she wanted to prove she didn't need me. At first, it just seemed petty and annoying. Then the financial details started filtering back to me through the family grapevine. Bethany called one evening while I was folding the girls' laundry. "Your mom finally showed me the contracts," she said without preamble. "Remember that $8,500 estimate she bragged about at Thanksgiving? It's closer to $17,000 now." I set down the laundry basket. "How did that happen?" Bethany let out a humorless laugh. The original estimate was bare minimum. The contractor added upgraded fixtures, a custom vanity, heated flooring, some premium tile package she fell in love with on Pinterest. Every time she said yes, he documented it as a change order. Now there are line items for expedited timelines, weekend labor, permit coordination fees. And because she started construction before filing half the required paperwork with the city, the building inspector showed up and hit her with violation fines for beginning work without proper permits. The HOA is threatening penalties, too, for not getting their architectural approval first. My chest tightened, not with sympathy at first, but with that nauseating familiar feeling of watching someone drive into a ditch you'd specifically warned them about. Why didn't she call me when they brought those contracts? I asked. I could have reviewed them and caught the inflated charges. "Because that would mean admitting she needs you," Bethany said. "And right now she'd rather hemorrhage money than give you that satisfaction." Over the next several days, the story continued evolving as it spread through the family network. One cousin mentioned Mom had called asking to borrow $750 just until the permit situation gets sorted out. My grandmother let it slip that Diane had cried on the phone about how she had nobody to help her navigate this, how her selfish daughter had abandoned her to deal with predatory contractors alone. The phrase selfish daughter hit a nerve, the same old refrain she'd been using on me since I was a teenager, anytime I wanted something for myself. Only this time, there was documentation. I wasn't the one who'd signed contracts or hired people off local Facebook ads. I'm finished letting my kids become collateral damage in whatever you're processing about your own life. If you want a relationship with me, and with them, it has to look fundamentally different. She stiffened. Different how? I held up one finger. First, you don't get to call my kids a burden or too much or anything like that ever again. Not even as a joke. If you're overwhelmed, you say you're overwhelmed. You don't project it onto them. Second finger. Second, co-signing isn't a bargaining chip. If you're uncomfortable with financial commitments, you say no. If you say yes, you do it without keeping a ledger. That's the only way this functions. Third finger. Third, I'm not your personal assistant or your contractor anymore. I'll help when I genuinely can, and when I choose to, not because I'm guilted into it. You have other options. You can ask friends, neighbors, community groups, professional services. Use them. She opened her mouth, probably to say, that's not how family works, then saw my expression and closed it again. Gerald spoke instead. That sounds fair, he said slowly. Diane, we can figure out alternative arrangements for transportation and errands. Your life can't depend on Cassie being perpetually on call. My mother stared at her hands. So what do I get? She asked quietly. You get opportunities to be a grandmother, I said. Not by entitlement, but by choice. If you can respect those boundaries, if you can be consistently kind to my daughters, I'll bring them over sometimes. They can bake with you, watch movies, plant herbs, whatever you want. But if you cross those lines, I'll pull back. No dramatic scene, no screaming match. I'll just be done. The words hung there between us like smoke. For once, she didn't argue. She just sat very still, then nodded once, sharp and small. I'll try, she said. It wasn't a promise. It wasn't a miraculous transformation, but it was the closest thing to accountability I'd ever heard from her. We finished our coffee in uncomfortable silence, talking around safer topics, school schedules, work rotations, the weather forecast. When I left, she hugged me, stiff and quick, like she wasn't certain if she was allowed. On the drive home, I kept waiting for that familiar wave of guilt to crash over me for being so firm. It didn't come. Instead, there was a thin, fragile sense of peace. We hadn't repaired anything. We just built a fence around the damage and agreed not to cross it. I let the girls decide about visits. When Emma said she was ready to see Grandma again, I took them over for a brief Sunday afternoon visit, stayed the entire time, and left before anyone got tired or cranky. For a little while, it almost looked like we might make this new version of family work. What I didn't know was that my mother was still clinging to her old narrative in one place I hadn't thought to monitor: social media. It started with a notification I almost dismissed. Someone had tagged me in a post in our extended family Facebook group. My mother had posted a photo of herself and Gerald standing in front of the completed bathroom renovation, all gleaming tile and modern fixtures. The caption hit harder than the image itself. After a challenging year, we finally finished it. She'd written, all on our own. No help, no handouts, just two retirees figuring things out without depending on anyone. Sometimes you realize you raised your children to be so independent they forget what family means. Beneath it, relatives were already praising her, calling her resilient, saying she'd always sacrificed the most. It was the same old story, updated for the algorithm: the abandoned mother, the ungrateful daughter. Except now I could literally see the lie documented in my photos and texts. I thought about ignoring it. Then I pictured Emma's face when Mom had called my kids too much. Remembered the 52 missed calls. The way she kept trying to drag me back into the role of rescuer while painting herself as the victim. My hands stopped shaking. I opened my photo library, pulled up a shot of me covered in drywall dust during one of her earlier renovation projects, and a screenshot of our old text exchange where she'd spelled out the arrangement in her own words. If you help us navigate these renovation decisions and handle the contractor research, I'll co-sign whatever you need for the next few years. Family takes care of family. Under her post, I replied with both images and wrote, "The bathroom looks beautiful, Mom. Just to be clear, though, it wasn't done all on your own. I spent months driving over after 10-hour hospital shifts to research contractors, compare quotes, and help you understand the paperwork. You offered ongoing co-signing in return. When you stood up on Valentine's Day and announced you were done with that arrangement, you ended the deal. I chose not to fix the permit problems and contract issues because you made it clear you didn't want me as family, just as free labor. I wish you'd told the complete story here." I hit post and set my phone down. Notifications exploded almost immediately. Bethany liked my comment. Marcus, the cousin with Tyler, added that he'd heard the same agreement from my mom months earlier. Then someone dropped a screenshot of the entire exchange into the larger Reed family group. That's when people really started speaking up. My grandmother commented that Mom had borrowed money claiming nobody would help her, without mentioning she'd push me away first. An uncle pointed out this wasn't the first time she'd refused advice, and then demanded rescuing. Marcus asked her publicly to stop comparing his perfect son to my girls, as if they were somehow deficient. For once, I didn't jump in to smooth things over. I just watched as my mother's preferred narrative cracked open. Nobody called her names or attacked her. They simply stopped pretending they didn't see the pattern. Mom deleted her post within an hour and messaged me privately. "I hope you're satisfied. You've turned my own family against me." I wrote back, "I didn't turn them against you. I just stopped covering for you. What they do with the truth is their decision." Later, Bethany told me Grandma had suspended the quiet financial assistance she'd been sending my mother for years, saying perhaps it was time Diane sat with her own choices. A few relatives quietly removed Mom from smaller group chats she dominated. It wasn't some dramatic exile, just a gentle stepping back from the chaos she used to orchestrate. That night, after I tucked the girls in, I left the family group myself and muted notifications from most of those threads. Instead, I responded to messages from the people who actually showed up for us, the neighbor who traded childcare, the coworker who swapped shifts, the parents who offered emergency pickups. Sitting there in the dim glow of my lamp, I realized this was my real revenge, if you could even call it that. I'd told the truth once in public, and then refused to return to my old role. I chose boundaries over guilt, my daughter's emotional safety over my mother's comfort. If there's a lesson in all of this, it's that you don't owe your silence to anyone, even a parent, when they're harming you or your children. Family isn't a free pass to be cruel or manipulative. Sometimes the most powerful form of family justice is simply walking away from the toxic narrative, building something healthier with people who genuinely care, and letting the ones who tried to break you live with the reality that you turned out perfectly fine without their approval. My mother still lives in that condo with her finished bathroom and her mounting debt. We see each other occasionally, supervised visits where I stay the whole time and leave when my instincts tell me it's time. Emma and Iris have learned that love doesn't mean accepting mistreatment, and that protecting yourself isn't the same as being cruel. As for me, I'm still working rotating shifts at County General, still raising 2 remarkable daughters in our small apartment, still building a life where my worth isn't measured by how much I sacrifice for someone else's comfort. And every time my phone stays quiet through an entire evening, no emergency calls, no guilt-laden texts, no crises that only I can solve, I remember that peace isn't something you find. It's something you build one boundary at a time, even when the people who raised you insist you're not allowed to. The distance between us isn't abandonment. It's survival. And I've finally learned the difference.